Good evening, I'm Soraya Mia, and this is exclusive with Azalina Othman. Joining us tonight is UMNO Supreme Council member and former Deputy Speaker of Dewan Rakyat, Datuk Seri Azalina Othman. Thank you for joining us tonight, Datuk. All right, so let's just begin with the much anticipated cabinet formation, which should be announced later on this week. So, in your opinion, how can the formation should be, and what do you think should be the Prime Minister's priority in choosing the so-called dream team?
Well, I think my view is number one, it must be proportionate representation based on the coalition government percentage. Because in most countries that has a coalition government setup is usually based on percentage base. That's number one. And number two, I think, of course, everybody is making a assumption that it must also be proportionate on gender base, especially the amount of women MPs plus with the voters, women voters. That is by virtue of some assumptions people make, but in reality, to get it out is also dependable on the coalition party, because the coalition party has got more say than any particular leadership of a single party. If it's a single party, it's much easier to sort out, but because it's a coalition party, so the party leaders must have that need or sensitivity or demand on, for example, an issue of whatever representation they're looking at. It could be gender, it could be issue based, it could be age based, it could be state based. I'm not sure because it's a coalition government. So Sabah and Sarawak also you have to evaluate. And last but not least, you have to take into account the numbers that comes from the independent bloc. So that's basically. I've done my calculation, but that's my personal calculation.
All right, Dato. I understand. So, we do know that the era of government knows it all has been over, even prior to the GE14. So, how do you think the new normal of the real politic in this new political realm of consociational democracy in Malaysia?
Well, I think one of the if anyone asks me this question, my immediate response is the credit must be given to the social media netizens, because what happens today is that whichever movement of any policy made by government, say for example in the previous government, I see the response extremely on real time, and that affected a lot of secondary and the third level of steps taken by, for example, on the announcement by the eighth Prime Minister regarding the olive branch approach on the CSA to other political parties, right? And he went live on air. People were surprised, but the netizens were angry because they didn't really understand what exactly was the angle coming in. So these are things that I believe that one of the reasons that the narrative and the optics of any future government must be handled well. So the communication is very important, because government moved in various dimensions on COVID challenge, for example. When you face 2020 COVID challenge and the pandemic 2021, the expectation of government was different, because the other countries were moving faster than us by 6 to 7 months. So there are a lot of things, a lot of decisions that they have made, the people have accepted. And the mistakes that they've made, we must learn. So we are like trailing behind, sort of maybe the middle ground, or maybe on the 40 to 50%, catching up to what they've done first. So these are strategies that if we are applying in our country, the policymakers must be extremely sensitive, that there must be a buy-in by the public. You cannot expect the public buy-in only during election. I think that's insulting the public. You expect that, well, we are government, we're very paternalistic, we know everything, listen to us. You are young, you don't know, you didn't go to war, you didn't face all the challenge. In my university days, I was different challenge. Yeah, but you didn't have a 5G phone, right? Then, when you were in university, now you do. And everybody's opinionated. So I think the government, this new government under the ninth Prime Minister, must be extremely sensitive to the views of the people out there. It doesn't matter whether they're voters or not, because these are very influential people. Let me take you one experience that I have is because the real time of being a deputy speaker, when you're up there, people are watching you live. You can't even, not that they'll forgive you for making mistakes, but they listen to every word that you say. And they check on everything, and to really, they educate themselves on procedure and practices. I find that extremely exciting and wonderful, because Malaysians are so aware of their rights, and I think it's fantastic.
That's a very good point, Dato. So, speaking about netizens and social media, what do you think about the new government and the TikTok generation? PM has started on high notes on the youth and also the Generation Z. You were also once Ketua Putri, and now what do you actually think or define of this TikTok generation group?
Well, I think, I'm a bit biased, because I believe that the existence of laws in Malaysia, uh, we're not having sophisticated law that can handle the challenges of certain generation. Say, for example, on issues of seditious. I mean, if you look at TikTok, sometimes when you look at it, it can be narrated from multiple elements. But if the government is being extremely sensitive and you're charging everyone on multiple reasons, so the law must change in tandem to the social media users. And then this issue about, for example, on implied notion of messages. So there must be a parallel change. That's number one. And number two, I believe that the TikTok users or the netizen, the expectation is extremely high because it's real time. So there's a lot of expectation on walk the talk. You have to walk the talk. You can't expect your policies to be accepted or swallowed by the rakyat just because you say so. So it doesn't work that way. So it's no more one-way communication at the time of our fathers and forefathers and grandfathers. Now, whatever you say, I remember an incident. There was a situation when someone was saying that, well, I wasn't there. It was an old video. They were expanding the picture of the check ceremony, and they captured the date, and the date was yesterday. That is how advanced the social media users are. They check on everything. So I think one of the most important thing for government is that if the government is recognizing the voices of the people or the rakyat through social media, I think let's be fair by making sure certain laws are amended to allow that.
Absolutely. Moving on to my next point would be also what you mentioned just now about women in cabinet. So with the current political landscape, who among women leaders do you think, besides yourself, of course, that should be in the government?
I can't answer that. I'm not the prime minister, but I think we must accept one thing, that in any Westminster system, in a Commonwealth-driven country like ours, the prerogative of the prime minister is extremely important. It must be his government. So a lot of people don't understand that when you say it is his prerogative and he's the prime minister, it should be his decision and his own evaluation. Because whether he makes it or he doesn't make it, it's all up to the team that is with him, and he has to be comfortable with them, even though it's from a coalition setup. And he must also be very, very confident that they can deliver the policies and the changes that he wants it to be delivered. So you can't tell him what he should do or who he should appoint. It should be his decision. But I think when it comes to gender, I have to say this. I know a lot of sensitive women's organization will get upset with me, but I have to say this. It's not just about putting a woman there. You got to put right women there who are gender sensitive themselves. Because when you are representing your political party, your party may not support certain views on women, for example, or even children that you personally. So being a politician sometimes, which I always believe as a member of parliament, there are certain issues that the MPs, when they are in the House, they must be able to cross the floor on issues that is affecting what they believe in. So there'll be a time whereby there are certain things the party can guide you and dictate you, but not on all issues. So So that even applies in the post that you hold, for example. You must be able to raise certain issues. For example, misogynistic statements by your colleagues. I think just because you're from the same political party, you're not supposed to just keep quiet about it. You can raise your concern, but of course, there are many ways to raise your concern. You don't have to be outrightly rude, but you could take this issue and say, "Look, I think this is unfair." So you have to play your role, especially being a woman in politics. And the percentage, the voters, like in my party, there's a lot of women at the grassroots level, but maybe not so high in the leadership level. But there must be equal respect because they have contributed a lot to the success of my party, to the development of this nation. So I believe that representation of women is not good enough. It must be a woman. If you put in any representation, whether women or young people, they must be able to voice the concerns that they have and cross the party line. That's my personal view.
No, I absolutely agree to that view. Okay, my next question. When is Malaysia going to be ready for a woman prime minister? And how do you think society would take that? Is society ready to actually accept a woman prime minister? As you mentioned just now, yes, it shouldn't be based on gender. It should be based on the level or the ability of this person to lead. But in your opinion, do you think Malaysia is ready for a woman prime minister?
Well, I thought we had a deputy prime minister. We had a woman deputy prime minister, didn't we? During the Pakatan Harapan time. And I think that's basically saying that the country is ready for women deputy prime minister, I suppose. But for women prime minister, I don't know about that. But I do know for a fact that in certain states in our country, some of the state government, I don't know whether they do have a specific law that the Menteri Besar, the chief minister, must only be men. I'm not sure about that. But I heard something like that. But in reference to position of speaker, there is no any regulation that says the speaker cannot be a woman or even the deputy speaker. And I think at some states in Malaysia, some of the speaker of the state representative, it has been women who are being speaker. But then again, for example, for me, one of the challenge I had being the deputy speaker was the chair was really high because maybe they measured it to men, not to women. And it was like huge. It was really uncomfortable. And then when I started my job, the robe was a men's robe, and then you had to tailor it. So those are the kind of challenges. But thank God they gave us our own toilet, because if not, it would be really difficult. So I feel that sometimes when you talk about change for Malaysia, the concept of change is not just the word change. You must be able to accept the fact that the whole environment and circumstances must also change. So it's not just about you saying that, well, are we ready? Should we have? Yeah, but there must. And it's the same thing like for me being a ketua UMNO Bahagian in Pengerang. I always tell, I'm one of the rare. We have now 6 women in the 191 divisional leaders in UMNO, or 6 women who are divisional leaders. And the branches, and there are multiple branches by the hundreds in our organization divisional level. To get the women to be the branch chairperson is also a very tall order. They are more comfortable to work in the environment of the women movement, in the wing, but not to take in the branch chairmanship, for example. So all I'm saying is that if you ask me, are we ready? The question to answer would be, the question of readiness must come from the bottom. For example, of local council, having more women leading worker. I am extremely proud of my state of Johor because there's a lot of women in the state, Johor state government agencies being led by women. It's not because of this gender specific, but because they were really talented and they qualified. So I believe this question is the entry point. The entry point must be a fair, level playing field. If the entry point doesn't have adequate women, how can the question be asked for the highest level of the highest post in the country? So that's basically, I think, what I'm trying to tell you, that it works both ways, not only at the top, also at the bottom.
if you don't mind me asking, what would be your best experience as a deputy speaker in your experience?
But I think one of the things I realize is that, you can't simply go as and when you like to the toilet like judges do. Judges, you can stand down and just rush off, but being a deputy speaker or a speaker, the process is very long because of you have the mota out there that represent the constitution. You have to bow everything. So you can't just simply rush in and rush out. So, one of the things that you really have to do is that you have to really adjust that. You have to sit there and you have to really listen and pay attention. It's not just the MPs trying to debate on issues affecting them, but the rakyat is watching you live. And again, I really appreciate technology and social media because the reaction and the response are quite immediate on any issue. So it's like, it's not, this is, I mean, the Olympic, you can take breaks after a few, you play any sports, you pause for a while, but an hour and a half up there, and they are continuously arguing and fighting. That's quite a big challenge, and trying to understand what they say, and they're screaming, and then making sure you understand the standing order, because you have to be fair. And the recording see, it's not like a situation whereby voice to text on the spot, you can read what they say and double check. So you need to pause and go back and read what they say. That takes time. So those are the challenges, because in the heat of the moment, they want you to make a decision. It's quite tough. So I appreciate the speaker and the other deputy speaker, because you take a lot of, well, one thing taught me is to be very patient dealing with screaming MPs.
We definitely appreciate the speaker and deputy speaker. We also loved watching you scolding the MP. So what is it actually like at that moment as a deputy speaker?
No, I think it's not about scolding. I'm just being very technical. I mean, you can stand out and raise issues, but under the standing order, you need to see. This is like a gallery of sophisticated gentlemen debating and arguing and agree to disagree, disagree to agree. But you can't just stand up and impose your views on someone, and it's not at your time. That's why we have a schedule of who speaks. So the art of being an MP, if people give you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, you must be able to throw your issues and debate on it, because the floor is yours. But you can't be hogging the floor 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, saying the same thing, going round and round and round, because you are expected to put priority the issues of your constituency first. Because the front bench is there, listening to your argument. That's what democracy is all about, check and balance. But if you're standing there and you want people and you drown people with your interruption and interjection because you think and you believe that you're right, then you should just go for coffee with your relevant peers and counterpart and sort it out outside. But to take that time, and we have to squeeze so many people who wants to speak fairly, and then you have to, you have to have some respect. And that is very important. It's not about me scolding them. It's just about me reminding to them that even if you're in a court of law, and most of them are lawyers as MPs, I think they're quite a high percentage. Would you dare to provoke or abuse the judge? Now you would ask for consent to stand up or even to interject, because this is what rules of civilization is all about. It doesn't give you entitlement just because you're an MP. You have to respect. That is why, for me, the select committee is extremely important, because in that chamber, you can't say a lot of things at a very short time. So the select committees carries the discussion and debate further. But if the government doesn't understand the importance of the select committee to go parallel, so my biggest qualm was for 7 months, Parliament was closed, and the select committee was not allowed to hold its meeting. That made me very furious. Because what are the MPs going to do for 7 months? They must be able to communicate issues that is affecting them on the ground. And with COVID, which is new, the vaccine at the beginning stage was inadequate. So where do they raise? You expect them to knock, they can't cross border to the minister's office. It's not like everything is hunky-dory. So, that's why Parliament needs to sit, and the select committee must carry on. So those are the grievances that I was very consistent about it, without fear or favor.
Let's move on to our final part of the interview.
Yes.
What do you think about Keluarga Malaysia? How do you define Keluarga Malaysia?
Well, I think, I know the Prime Minister way back in my Putri days. I mean, that is his demeanor. He's an extremely decent man. He's very fatherly, very brotherly. He's extremely he's a very gentle, for me, he's a very gentle soul. And that is him. What you see is what you get. And I suppose he believes that he's able to bring everyone together. And I believe that he wants to come up with that approach, because with the COVID pandemic, there's so many voices out there, but to get everyone on the table and to get Malaysians to understand the challenges out there, you need a very understanding personality. And I suppose for my party, we felt that he being the highest on the hierarchy with the challenges and being the former deputy prime minister, I believe that the whole objective of Keluarga Malaysia is to be able to bring forward an idea of all hands on deck and ceasefire, and let's put the rakyat as our top priority. And I believe that from what I hear is that he wants to see more stability. But I may be wrong, I'm not sure. Just my general observation.
So we did go through many rhetoric nation of intents like Bangsa Malaysia, One Malaysia. So Keluarga Malaysia, how is it different? And what are we actually going to achieve in this?
Well, I suppose that you also cannot deny the fact that we are a uh, developing nation, and we have multiple challenges of the state, especially with the challenge of COVID and the country sort of being literally locked down, and then you want to revive back economy, and at the same time looking into the pandemic challenge. And I believe that what basically in every prime minister's mind is to have one objective that he's looking at, and he's going to move his policy towards that. And I believe that from what I said earlier, the whole concept of Keluarga Malaysia is more about stability and unity, to get everyone on board, because you can't fight the pandemic I always, before I end, let me give you this analogy that I have been a practicing lawyer for so many years. When people are very narcissistic or misogynistic in their views, I always ask them this question. You have a case in court and you're going to be charged for hanging or death sentence. The best lawyer in town is someone of a different religion and race and gender for you. Will you take it to save your life? Or would you, oh, no, I only want this race and this gender and this age. Same thing with professionals, like example, a specialist or a surgeon. For the surgeon to save your life, I think you would go to someone who really fits the bill. I think all this issue of race, religion, gender wouldn't come in. It's your life. And I think that is something that a lot of people must accept and understand. And if we continuously talk about Malay rights, non-Malay rights, we're separating the needs of the people in a very aggressive manner. I think it would be really unfair for the rakyat. And you have a pandemic, and the pandemic, the COVID, doesn't look at your race, religion, or gender, or even age. And that's my final word. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Datuk. That was Datuk Sri Azalina Othman, UMNO Supreme Council member and former Deputy Speaker of the Dewan Rakyat. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Seri, and good night.